hall, and she was going to tell us about the program and what it has to offer, and either for yourselves or for principals that you have or future principals. It's just a wonderful program, and it's a thoroughly Catholic ethos to it. So it's not simply what you'd get anywhere else with, a little bit here or there, pepper and salt that's Catholic. It's a totally Catholic operation. So they're all yours.
I appreciate Father Peter inviting me here. And that sales pitch will come at the end of our conversation. We're going to do this the old-fashioned way today. We're just going to have a conversation because I can probably learn as much from you as you can from me. Father said I'm the director of Catholic School Leadership. My last 2 degrees, I had an undergraduate in economics from College of Mount St. Vincent and a first master's from my own college in teaching, Master of Science in Teaching. I was a Catholic school educator for 25, 26 years, and then a principal for 10 years, and then I'm going into my 5th year here. So I've got about 40 years in Catholic education. From kindergarten to doctorate, my last 2 degrees were from here. The program I now direct, I actually sat in the seat in cohort 6, and this year will be cohort 20. It was started, some of you might know Father Kevin Hanbury. It was started by Father Kevin Hanbury 20 years ago. He was just a wonderful man, quite a character and a wonderful man. But he really saw a need, and certainly many other schools, another 20 and more universities have Catholic school leadership programs. But he saw a need for future leaders in the Archdiocese of Newark. So in collaboration with the Department of Education, Leadership, Management, and Policy here at the university and the School of Theology, the seminary, they put together this Catholic school leadership program. And with the new dean, she put the tagline on this as being putting the Catholic in Catholic school leadership. A lot of the, when I go out to NCEA, when I presented there, when I go and sit in, when other colleges and universities are talking about the Catholic school leadership program, there's such a demand for meeting standards for principals, state licensing, et cetera, because we as Catholic schools obviously want that. But they've lost some of their Catholicity. And at one meeting, I said to, I'm not going to be in the school, but at the end, I said to the head, I said, how do you keep the Catholic in that? He said, we have to do a better job of that. And he was 15 months into it at a very reputable Catholic college. So afterwards, he said to me, how do you do it? A couple of other people. And there are ways in which we keep that Catholicity in. And I'll talk about that at the end. But my own experience with Catholic education, as I said, kindergarten through doctorate, and I was given the gift of Catholic education at the elementary and high school level by my parents. Jim and I gave it to our 3 children, and we are grandparents for the first time as of 2 weeks ago, with another one on the way. Please God, I ask you to say your prayers. Nobody knows. I'm telling you a secret, okay? We're only like 3 weeks or 4 weeks into this. So you pray very hard. I would appreciate that. And then my oldest is Holy Cross educated, and she's single and going to foster a child on an adoption track. So a year from now, if I'm invited back to talk about something else, I might have 3 little ones running around. So my life is full. I love being a Catholic school director of the Catholic School Leadership Program. My objective in getting the doctorate was to do that. I really wanted to do that. And I was lucky enough to do it, not in the way I wanted, with the loss of my senior. But being in a classroom as a middle school teacher, I started out in the South Bronx, moved on to Westchester, over to schools. I was in 5 schools. I ended up in St. Elizabeth's in Wyckoff, New Jersey. I was the principal there then after being on the staff for 3 years, for 10 years. So I've hit about everything. I have not taught at the high school level, but I've done a lot of coaching at the high school level, so that kind of helps out some things. So that's a little bit about me. You all know each other, but if you wouldn't mind just to humor me, could you just introduce yourselves and let me know where you are right now and whether or not you have responsibility for school at the moment?
Sure, I'm Father Gus Stewart from the Diocese of Colorado Springs. I live in a town of Parker, just a little way south of Denver. We have the largest K through 8 in our diocese. Anything else?
No.
Okay, that's cool.
No, that's fine. You probably ought to do the 30-second variety because you all know each other, but I just kind of like to know my audience. It's fine. Thank you, Father.
I am Father Tom. I am very new in this country. I flew 5 months ago. I am parochial vicar in Parker. And,
Well, welcome.
I working in Poland for 7 years. This is not the same situation in school like here. I have 28 hours per week religion in Poland, but here this is new experience for me.
Okay. Thank you.
Father Robert Maladjesi, the Missionaries of Sacred Hearts of Jesus and Mary. Our community staff support parishes in the Diocese of Harrisburg, and as of May, I just became pastor of the parish for the school. So I'm hoping to learn what I need to know in order to be able to be with the principal and the educators there to see how we can perhaps even improve on the good work that they've already started.
That's always the key, continuing to improve.
I'm Jeff Maczynski. I'm a seminarian at St. John's in Boston. I'm currently staying with the Diocese of Rochester, New York. My summer sort of assignment is a parish, and we have a K-5 school there. And I've been helping out there next school year.
Father John Hisrick, Diocese of Pittsburgh. I'm pastor of St. Malachy Parish in the western part, just outside the city. I am also a teacher at our Catholic school, usually in the upper grades, and do what I can with the younger grades too. And I have been named the ultimate Bomber fan for our St. Malachy Blue Bomber basketball team.
There you go.
Go Bombers!
It's so important. You were wonderful host of the NCAA a few years ago. First time I'd been to Pittsburgh, it was a wonderful city. We had a wonderful experience out there. Sister, thank you.
Sister Agnes Cousins from Charlotte, North Carolina. I'm in a large Catholic high school, 1,300, and I'm the department head there. So we have 11 other religion teachers. I was going to say theology, but Father has taught me the difference between theology and religion. I've been looking for a program for formations for teachers. We're getting a lot of applicants who have never taught before, and then I end up mentoring them for the year. And right now I've got 2, and that's a lot. So it would be, do you in your presentation, do you say who would be able to attend?
Well, yes, we'll talk about who's able to attend, and we'll talk about, from the teacher point of view, how maybe I can help you too, as opposed to the principal, and you might have some teachers that are ready for that. But as I said, I'll leave the sales pitch until the end. We'll talk a little bit about Catholic education.
Father Anthony Sirianni from the Metuchen Diocese, St. Helena's School at City, New Jersey. So I have school from pre-K to 8, and I'm in my 10th year there, and I'm very involved in my school.
We've had some wonderful teachers and school leaders, teacher leaders, and going on to be principals from Metuchen. I hope you get some more so we can talk.
Okay.
My name is Father Martin Espinosa. I'm the parochial vicar at Our Lady of Perpetual Help in Bernardsville, and we do have a school. My situation is that it is pre-K to 8, but my situation is that the pastor doesn't work at the school, so I don't work at the school. I just get to say hello to the kids in the morning and goodbye in the afternoon. That's about it.
We'll see how we can talk about that.
I'll be in mood next
Oh, you're
month.
right.
So.
I actually go to Immaculate Conception in Somerville, where the IHM sisters are from Immaculate College. So they're going to be using you, so I don't think you're going to be
It's not gonna be off the hook.
Yeah, they have a grammar school and a high school.
Yeah.
You can.
I'm Arthur Kennedy, Auxiliary Bishop Emeritus of the Archdiocese of Boston. For 32 years, I was a professor and also chair and dean of theology at the University of St. Thomas. I was a co-founder of the Catholic Studies program, on which the Catholic Studies program here has been based, and also created a program for teachers of religion in elementary schools for the Archdiocese of St. Minneapolis. He served as rector.
My name is Father David Waters. I am a parochial vicar at Our Lady of Perpetual Help in Philadelphia, well, just west of in a town called Morton. And we have a K through 8 school, Our Lady of Angels, which was just recently regionalized. So that's what they call it. So we have a school too on our premises.
Okay.
I'm Nala Silva. I'm the associate Father's Parish. I'll be moving to a new parish on August 1st. So I have been in Metropolitan Diocese for 3.5 years, and before that, in the Archdiocese of Newark, Palaces Park, working 5 years in parish. So I was very fortunate to be in parishes with schools so far. So I'm going also to a parish.
Thank you.
And last but not least,
Well, I'm Paul Plejo. I just graduated high school, and I'll be attending Douglaston Seminary in Douglaston,
Wonderful.
New York.
Wonderful. Douglaston, New York.
I'm in the Max Exception Seminary in Douglaston, New
Oh,
York.
okay. Okay, wonderful. Welcome.
and I said, interesting sign of the times, 13 years at Catholic school, never had a nun in class.
Well, that's, that's part of the story we're going to tell.
Yeah.
I guess I'm dressed appropriately. I realized it coming back. What I'm going to do is just sit down.
We
and
have,
part of the
we
group, if
have,
that's all right
we
with
have
you.
a veil outside for you.
I'm sorry, but no.
They take grandmothers.
I just went to the Academy of Mount St. Ursula to try to get a number of us on board. I just was back there for a reunion. It's in the Bronx up the hill from Fordham University. We just had a big reunion. And we reached out to some people. I mean, social media is wonderful. I found people I hadn't seen in decades. And we spent the weekend in the city and went to the reunion. It was like we'd never been apart. But we were telling stories about how they used to try to produce. I got a couple, but we didn't get me, unfortunately. Okay, I'm just going to do this as a conversation. As I said, I can probably learn as much from you as you can from me. So jump in, ask questions, however you want to do it. But I think one of the things we can agree on is that Catholic schools are at crossroads. There's no question about that. And it's always about the past, the present, and the future. So we're in the present, and we need to celebrate the Catholic schools. I mentioned to Father, out in Pittsburgh at the NCEA. Every year at the NCEA, we see what wonderful things we're doing. And you had Tom Burnford.
He was here yesterday, right?
I mean, it's just, every year it's awe-inspiring what we do in our Catholic schools. Whether you're in the classical mode or whether you're in a high-tech school that, specializes in that, the Catholicity is there and we do wonderful things. So celebrating the present is certainly important. Cherishing the past, I mean, the legacy we have, the stories we told during that reunion, the things we learned in our elementary school and high school that still stay with us. And we've been given this legacy and these traditions to cherish. And then looking to the future. What's the future going to look like in our Catholic schools? And being at this crossroads, it's really up to us what the Catholic school is going to look like. Everybody in this room, all the students in our programs, teachers and administrators throughout the country. So what do we do to ensure that our Catholic schools are Catholic in every sense of the word for the students of tomorrow? Archbishop Miller from the Archdiocese of Vancouver.
A man from his diocese was here, a layman, yesterday for the presentation.
And some of what I say today might be a repetition. We've been here all week, and if it is, I apologize for that. But he gave a paper, wrote a paper, defining characteristics or distinctive characteristics or traits of Catholic schools. And it was based on Holy See documents. It was based on, I think Pope Benedict was the Pope at the time when he wrote it. But he talked about things that are obviously very familiar to you, so I don't have to define them. But these characteristics were the Catholic schools need to be, these distinctive marks. And I'll send you, I'm going to get from Father links. I'll send you links to anybody I mentioned so that you can read this article in depth if you choose to do it. But our Catholic schools must be centered in the person of Jesus. They need to contribute to the evangelizing mission of the church. They need to be distinguished by excellence, committed to the education of the whole child, steeped in a Catholic worldview, sustained by gospel witness, shaped by communion and community, and accessible to all students. Now they said 5 links. I think in one article, he kind of collapsed a couple of these. But none of that is new to you. But as pastors, as potential pastors, as you go through your career, whether it's a principal and a president model, a pastor and a principal model in elementary school, or a principal and a president model in a Catholic high school, These are things we need to have conversations about. Are our schools, most of them, many of them are distinguished by excellence. We know that. But are we centered in the person of Jesus? Are we committed to the whole child? And that's really our mark, right? Right from the start. We knew from very early on in school, those of us who were in my era, that our Catholic faith was part of our education, part and parcel, hand in hand. We need to continue that, certainly. Sustained by gospel witness are our faculty members, are our priests, our parish priests, are our pastors, witnesses to the faith. Are they walking the walk? Are they there for a family, a little boy when he loses his grandmother, or for a family that is struggling with financial need? Is the principal there for them? Shaped by communion and community. My first class here in Catholic school leadership, and Bishop, you probably remember somebody by the name of Eleanor Ford.
Yeah.
She was around.
She was my doctoral dissertation advisor.
Was she? She was the superintendent of schools in the Archdiocese of New York. I think she was the first lay woman to have such a position. When I was in school, then I became a teacher in the Archdiocese, and then she went on to be the CEO of Sadler. And then she was here, and she walked into the room, and she was in her 80s at the time, in our very first class. And one of the nice things about this, and there'll be anecdotes for this little conversation we're having. One of the nice things about this program is last year's graduating course spanned age 27 to age 67. I had somebody that was just out of a master's program and wanted an EDS, so they were just rolling it in. And I had the headmaster, who I'll talk about a little bit later because he was my pastor, Robert Harahan, who was the headmaster of Seton Hall Prep, who has a doctorate in theology, who was the rector here at the seminary. He was appointed to be the headmaster by the bishop, and he called me and said, "Connie, I think I might have to go back to school because I have never run a school." So he actually came into the program. What a gift that was to that particular cohort, that he was able to share his gifts. One of the things we struggle with too, in terms of what Archbishop Miller says, is accessible to all students. That's really one of our great problems now in Catholic education. I'm preaching to a choir here, but in terms of where our tuitions are going, can we do it? How do we set up funding for this? All the things that are aligned with that. Well, what's our real goal? It's transforming lives. It's being disciples. And our Catholic faith, from Trinity to Triune to Triduum, we're locked into threes. So when I became a principal, and I believe in Catholic education with every bit of my heart, I thought, how do I transfer my feelings to new parents coming in, to people, to the faculty, I believe in transparency, I believe in really talking to a faculty, establishing that collegial atmosphere. How do I do this? So I came up with my own three, and it's nothing new. People have had it for years, but it was obviously the faith component, the academic component, and the awareness component. So what I did with folks, and I think it really resonated with parents, at least they came back and told me so. What I did with parents, whether they were transferring in the 7th grade or whether they were coming into pre-K4, why Catholic schools? They always ask, why should we spend our money? Why should we come here when in Bergen County the public schools are wonderful, etc.? I said, here's what you're going to get, and here's how I'm going to speak about it. And you can tell me whether you think this makes any sense. I look at it, whether you've got a 4-year-old or a 12-year-old that's going to graduate in 2 years. What are they going to look like as a graduate? What is the St. Elizabeth School graduate going to look like going to the next level? And if they are deeply rooted in their faith and understand the roots of that faith, if they believe in God's unconditional love, if they enjoy, have an awareness, have been brought to sacraments, to adoration, to Stations of the Cross, to joyous liturgies, to funerals for a teacher that might have died during the year from illness. If they've been exposed to all of that, if they really have, if we've helped them along their spiritual journey from 4 to 14, to that pre-K4, want to be pre-K3 to 14-year-olds, 8th grade. If we've done that, we're in a good place. If we connected religion, Father just talked about seeing religion in science. If we've done that, we've done something very special. Academics, if we prepare them for the next level, for success in the next level, whether they are a special ed student who's on the autism spectrum, whether they are a BC student, that's the God-given talents they have in terms of academics, whether they are the A student, if we have given them that academic preparedness for the next level. And lastly, but an awareness of social justice issues, of stewardship on the earth, ethics, morals, the things we need. If they leave here with that being the fiber of their being, we've been successful. So that's one of the ways in which I kind of conveyed my feelings about Catholic education, seeking truth and wisdom through learning, and creating that passion for justice. Catholic values need to permeate the school. There are schools you walk in today, and I've walked into several of them, you would not know they were Catholic. They could be St. Agnes, they could be St. John the Baptist, you wouldn't know it other than the name. And there are others, which is the schools we want to create, which is the schools that hopefully the graduates of this program are creating. There are schools where you walk in and our Catholic identity is palpable, just by the tone, just by the way people speak to each other. And that certainly starts at the top. So how do we do this? It's only through leadership. Leadership's the key. You can read studies left and right about education as a whole, and they'll talk about leadership, principal leadership, superintendent leadership, whatever it might be, being key to a school's success. Well, at the elementary level, we have that, in many places, we have a pastor-principal model. It's changing in some areas of the country. And as I said before, in many of the high schools, it's a president-principal model. But for those two people to be able to work together and to find that leadership in each one of them, their leadership qualities and their strengths, to be able to work together, to be able to communicate, and to realize that Catholic school leadership is a sacred prophetic vocation. It's what we do. It's putting faith in the deep waters, certainly, of our Christianity. But I think leadership is the X factor. It determines our success. It determines our survival, really. Parker Palmer wrote a book, The Courage to Teach, and I had to read it in one of my courses here. I forget which one. And his premise was, we teach who we are. So you can't take your being, your personality, your strengths and weaknesses out of who you are in front of the classroom every day. I flipped it, and when I'm speaking in a leadership, I'm teaching one of my leadership courses, I teach 5 courses here. Teaching one of my leadership courses here, or one of my Catholic courses here, I say, we lead who we are. Whoever we are deep down, whoever we were growing up, that's who we still are. And in order to be very good at what we do, that has to shine through. Do we have to tweak some of our Achilles heels? We all have them, so the answer to that is yes. But, so Parker Palmer talked about, you can't separate the personal and the professional. We need to be authentic leaders. And Dr. Mitchell, Charles Mitchell, who's a professor here, in another course said, if I define leadership, I define it in 3 words: relationships, relationships, relationships. Once again, we have the edge, because it's not only about really going out and building relationships, whether it be supporting a basketball team, whether it be greeting people when they come in. It's not only about relationships with the people in our community, it's building a relationship for the community with our God. So we've got that extra edge. So what's the role of the pastor? How many pastors do I have here? Well, I was, as a rookie principal, now I came into it, I was probably late 40s going into 50 when I came into it. Seasoned teacher, mother of 3, they were in Catholic schools. I've been president of, homeschool association, etc. I've been teaching long enough. I knew what I wanted a Catholic school to look like, because I knew what I wanted for my own children. I knew what I wanted for my own students. So I had maybe more self-confidence than some of the young people going in to leadership has, which is why programs like this help. But you also have to be very fortunate. I had Monsignor Don Gunther my first 5 years, and Monsignor Robert Harahan for my second 5 years. And, they gave me their presence, or they gave us, the school community, the faculty, the students, the parents, myself. They gave me their presence, their support. They gave us a willingness to participate in every part of the school, every day being around. They had a belief that we were not a financial albatross, but that we were the future of the church. They believed it, they were outspoken advocates about it, they talked about it, whether it be in the bulletin, whether it be in the pulpit, whether it be at the state of the school. They would come in first and speak about the spiritual state of the school. They were there, and they got to know faculty, they got to know children by name. They were welcoming, they were building community. You can't put a price on that. And at an elementary level, you know as well as I do, the pastor is the linchpin for the success of the school. You either thrive and survive or can go under. I've seen it happen with the attitude of the pastor. There's nothing special about it. You're building a foundation. You're doing what you do every day, but it takes time. Maybe you have to split a little bit of time, you know. But if you see the school as a ministry of the parish and part of the parish and linked to the parish, it becomes a whole lot easier. Father, you talked about teaching. If you can teach, sometimes you can, sometimes you can't. But if you can teach, even if it's just an enrichment course, some kind of a link there, certainly. I had a pastor in one school. I've taught in 5 schools. And 4 of them, we were blessed with pastors who were very much like the 2 that I had as a principal. In one school, I don't think there was a child who could name the pastor. Because at this particular school, they did things the old-fashioned way. They had a children's mass and this was back in the 70s. They had a children's mass, and the children went to that mass. Well, the pastor never wanted to say that mass, so he never even said the mass. They didn't know. And the principal was doing the best she could. I mean, I only stayed about 3 years because life intervened. But it was a very different dynamic than what I described before. When you feel affirmed and supported and that we're in this together and that there's a purpose to what we're doing, we're in a much better place. So the role of the principal, it's basically, in this day and age, we do everything. Whether it's running out to get a plunger at lunchtime because the janitor is off, whether it's holding somebody's hand because their puppy died, whether it's taking a class because a faculty member has a mother who's ill. All of those little things happen, but our biggest role as principals, I mean, you're looking for a principal, is that they have a school that's an exemplar of Catholic education. They need to create a culture and a curriculum that, once again, you walk into school and it's powerful. Lots of definitions of culture, right? How do you define culture? How would you define culture? There's no right or wrong, there's thousands of definitions. But any thoughts on how you would define a school culture? Or an organizational culture? School culture is built on organizational theory.
You're going to get Bishop Kennedy active here.
I'm sure I am. Probably.
Well, the simplest way, it's a way of life.
Way of life.
It basically it establishes the forms by which people are able to account for and initiate development by all of the various elements of human dynamics and intelligence that discovers the importance of such things as truth, value, and of course then translation of those into different data, such as educational data, economic data, political data. So you have all of these institutions that come together, and then they all have to integrate themselves together. And so the way in which a culture establishes itself is really important on what the foundation is. And Christopher Dawson was one of the great Catholic students of culture, the creation of European culture, Christian culture. Always identified the fact that it was always the spiritual vision of the people that is the base out of which a culture is brought forward. And and he would say, if it wasn't Christianity, yes, it had been for Europe, it will be some other religion or some other ideology, such as communism, Nazism, essentially.
Well, Thank you, Bishop, for the editing. All right, you can put that in paper for me, I'll credit you, and I'll put that up. We'll
That's
talk
all right,
about
I've
that.
already done those.
You've already done it. But we are countercultural in Catholic schools, are we not? We're swimming against the tide. Look what's out there. Look what's, I mean, I wanted my, I always said when there were elections, you have to remain apolitical. You have to, the media that's out there, the music that's out there, we're countercultural. They can't live in a bubble, but we have to give them, as Bishop Kennedy said, that cultural foundation to say, this is not right. This is not for me. I have to stand up for what's right, whether they're 7 or whether they're 17 or 27. But it's a way of life. It's a shared system of orientations, of values. It's traditions and beliefs in an organization. It's basic assumptions. Those are all parts of Hoy, of Shine, of Mitzenberg, and of Kennedy. They all blend together into this definition of culture. And organizational cultures are about stories. They're about legends, about icons. All we did, to go back to that reunion again, because there was a culture in my high school, to go back to that reunion, we told stories about the good Ursuline sisters that taught us. We told stories about the basketball. There were stories, there were legends. Remember who? There's metaphors for culture in an organization. It can be a family. It can be a zoo. It can be a machine. It can be a jungle. It can be a cathedral. From our purpose of Catholic education, we would hope that we're looking at the two metaphors called family and called cathedral. A holy place, a sacred place. One of my favorite days of the year, well, my second favorite, my favorite was the end of school. But it never really ended when you were a principal. But the Labor Day weekend, the day before, like that Sunday, I'd be in working, making sure everything was perfect, and I'd roam the halls and open up these classrooms that were brand spanking new with bulletin boards but what would come to my mind, and everybody had their prayer corner, is these were sacred halls. We were, and I'd say it to the teachers at the faculty meeting the next day before the children came in a couple of days later. This is a sacred responsibility. What's going to go on in these brand spanking new classrooms, they're not going to look like that by Halloween, we know that. But what's going to go on in them is the transformation of lives, of the introduction to their faith, of the sustenance by which they want to live. So, people take culture for granted very often. Hopefully in our Catholic schools, we never take it for granted. One of, I don't think it was Archbishop Miller. It was another archbishop, and his name escapes me. I didn't put it here. He talked about culture, Catholic school culture, being grounded in, very similar to what Archbishop Miller said, the life of Jesus, the church traditions, the wonder of the spiritual. We have to give our children and our students and our adolescents a time to be contemplative. That sense of community and family, the reverence for self and for others, that respect for dignity. That's who we are as Catholics. That being of service to others. NCEA puts out a number of really good books. Some of them I used for my teachers. One of them was written years ago by Timothy Cook. And it's called The Architects of a Catholic Culture. And the basic premise of the book is that we need, as the leader of the school, to be the architect of the culture of the school. And he starts off with saying leaders need to act with intentionality. You're building a building. You're the architect of a building. It's intentional. Every wing you put in it, every stairway, wherever the glass might go. We need to think about building the culture within our school with that same intentionality. We need to nurture the imagination, the Catholic imagination, and connect everything and link everything to our mission, to our gospel values. Secondly, he talks about it's a conscious endeavor to build multiculturalism, to be universal, to be welcoming. Now, there are schools that are very multicultural. There are schools that are not. The school I was in Wyckoff, New Jersey, was not. How do you build multiculturalism in a school? You get children to appreciate differences. And certainly there was some multiculturalism, but it was minimal as opposed to some other schools, certainly in the state. But to appreciate something is learning differences, to appreciate different talents. There are ways in which we can embrace what's different in our schools, how our students are different, and a way to give them that appreciation of being unique. Building blocks. Cook talks about utilizing common building blocks to support our purpose and mission, to assist in achieving a unique charism. You know, if you're Jesuit educated from St. Peter's Prep, you've got the Jesuit charism. You're a man for others, or men and women for others. If you went to Boston College or Holy Cross, or wherever that might be. You know, the Ursuline charism, the Salesian charism of being a church, a playground, a school, having that religion, reason, kindness, whatever the charism might be. In a school that doesn't have a particular congregational order, in high schools, many of the grammar schools don't, although the one you just mentioned, or Father just mentioned, you just mentioned the IHM. Right. So they'll have their own charism. But in a school like St. Elizabeth, the Sisters of St. Joseph of Peace were gone. But you said that I was the first lay principal. When I was interviewed, they said, we want a religious woman. Well, the principal I had there, Sister Maureen, who was elected to be the provincial, so she couldn't say no. She said to me, tell them you are a religious woman. Tell them you just don't wear a veil, but you're a religious woman and you're committed. Tell them that. Speak that words. And certainly, I wasn't comfortable necessarily with, I'd shared my faith with my students for 25 years. I guess once in a while on retreat, I shared my faith with faculty members, with my own children. But getting up and being the so-called spiritual leader of the school in conjunction with the pastor, speaking after prayer service, that was something that was expected, and I had to get better at it and do more. But I knew that in order for our school to be Catholic, that's something I had to be very strong. And I was, and I became better at it, and with help of my pastor, I became pretty good at it, as a matter of fact. But engaging others, Cook talks about engaging others in building a culture and viewing themselves as God's architect. In Catholic schools, there's really no separation between time of learning and time of formation. It's all melded together. I think leaders have to build a collegial atmosphere. I talked a little bit about that before. Our faculties, or if you're the pastor, building a collegial atmosphere. Our principal, our faculties need to be affirmed. They need to have a voice. There needs to be a sharing of leadership. You need to know the expectations. What's the vision? Can they contribute to the vision? If you have a vision as a school leader or a pastor of a parish, and nobody knows what that vision is, that vision is probably not going to go very far. But if you enable others to share and create that vision, we talked about building culture and curriculum. You know, when I teach a curriculum course, it's the how, what, and the why, right? Or the what, the how, and the why. What are we teaching? What are the essential questions? What's the lesson plans? What's the unit plans? Is it history? Is it math? Is it buoyancy? Is it fractions? Is it World War II? What's the what? The how are we going to reach everyone? How are we going to do our part as Catholic educators to appreciate the uniqueness of each student? How are we going to differentiate? Are we going to integrate technology? Are we going to diagram sentences because it still works for grammar? When I put it together a blue ribbon, we were a blue ribbon school at St. Elizabeth, which I was very proud of. We became it a years before I left. But in our application, there were all these criteria, and one of them was, keeping up with the latest practices. Well, diagramming has been out for a long time, but right in there I said, I don't believe in throwing the baby out with the bathwater. I believe in blending traditional methods that work with current best practices. So we were diagramming sentences in our middle school, but we were also using reading, writing roadmap on our which was an editing tool on our smartboard. They could work hand in hand. And there were some days where both were in action. But I think that blending for a curriculum of the how we're going to teach and the why, our public school counterparts, is to build citizens for this country of ours, certainly, and for the world at large. Now that we're a global village. The why for us is easy. The why for us is we want our children to be believers, to believe in Jesus Christ, to take that message, to look out for their neighbor, to be aware of social justice, to carry that faith, to witness that faith. So the why is easy. How do we ensure? I'm watching my time here because I don't want to go too over. I have a couple more things here. if we're to create students for the 21st century, what are our curriculum needs? And I did a presentation on the surviving in a sea of C's. And the C's are of this 21st century curriculum. And they talk about collaboration, communication, connectedness, creativity, and critical thinking. Those 5 things need to be actually taught to our children. How to collaborate, how to communicate. They're on this, they're watching how to communicate, how to be creative. We didn't need to learn that. We played outside. We had imaginary, games that we played. Children today, and I'm talking about the younger children today and some of the older ones, but these are C's that are not Catholic. They're out there in research in terms of curriculum for education across the nation for us. For standards, we won't get into the standards because there's no time for it here, but the benchmark of Catholic education has always been, we've always met standards. 3 decades ago, when I started, more than that, 4 decades ago, when I started my teaching career, we were dealing with standards for the state of New York. We took Regents exams. We had to learn standards in. But it was always more than that. That's what we've done. When there was that Common Core brouhaha a couple of years ago, and it still exists, there was a superintendent of schools, and I don't remember the sister's name, but I read it in, I think it was the New York Times. She was the superintendent of schools in Chicago, the Archdiocese of Chicago. And she said, what Common Core standards are, we have been doing. We have been doing, and we've done more. And the way she explained it was terrific. And if I could find the article, I'll send you the link on it. I was out of St. Elizabeth's at that point, but apparently the new principal was dealing with a terrible time with Common Core. And I went to her and I said, look, here's one way of explaining it. Do a Venn diagram. What have we been doing at St. Elizabeth's School for the last 2 decades successfully? Put everything we've been doing. Put Common Core and see what's in the middle. Well, the middle was, you couldn't fill it fast enough. So as curriculum, when we look at standards, it's a matter of adding those other 2 C's, the Catholicity and the consciousness. Consciousness of their neighbor, consciousness of their world. So how do we find the leaders we need? How do you as pastors find, or potential pastors or principals, find a later succession? What do we do in the here and now to find the leaders we need for our Catholic schools? There's a book that Thomas Groom wrote about being Catholic, why Catholic. And he used a framework that I used when I'm talking to people about interviewing principals. You're looking for somebody with commitment, willing to live and share their faith, to build that spiritual foundation. There has to be a willingness to share faith. When he talks about community, you're looking for somebody who's willing to build relationships, be a companion on the journey, offer guidance, offer criticism when necessary, constructive criticism, offer encouragement. Somebody who's willing to have conversations. I firmly believe in the power of conversation. Some of them took place walking down the hall, some of them took place early in the morning in my office, late in the afternoon. Conversations are cathartic. I can't say that correctly, but anyway. They give people the ability to vent, to talk about what their dreams, to say what went wrong. How can we do it right next time? So this conversation, it's about dialogue and mutual exchange of ideas, but it's also about listening. You don't know how important it is for pastors and principals to listen to their faculty, to hear what they have to say. I was lucky enough to set up a communication. Once a week we had coffee, both pastors. Once a week we had coffee together. Sometimes my place, sometimes his place. I'd bring it, sometimes he'd bring it. The pastor needs to have the pulse of the school. And the pastor never wants to be blindsided in the narthex at the end of Mass on Sunday with something that happened on Friday that he doesn't know about. So there's lines of communication that are very important there. When you're looking for a principal, look for somebody who's willing to celebrate. Look for somebody who's willing, who has joy, optimism, to throw a great party. That's important. That's important for your faculties, that bonding. And look for somebody who's willing to evangelize, to convert, to invite people to the fullness of life. That includes faculty formation and parents. If you add to that, if you add to what Bruce talked about, and you add confidence, you gotta find somebody. You gotta find somebody who has knowledge, skills, and disposition to do your school, to ensure that your school succeeds. You've got to have somebody who is willing to embrace change if change is what's needed. You have to have somebody who knows what to do in a challenging situation. Some of our challenges we know are going to happen. If we're going to change a school uniform after 20 years of being the same uniform, that's very simple. We're going to have pushback. If we're going to change the curriculum, we're going to have pushback. Then sometimes there's the unexpected challenge. How is this person going to meet challenges? So if you start out by asking why a Catholic school to a potential candidate, and then go through this grooms, and I can send this to you, go through this kind of grooms, and you can tweak it however is right for your school. You'll have something. Two ways to end this before I give you my sales pitch. One is, you can also ask a potential principal, give them something to react to. Give them something to react to. I used to give them this. Integrity has much to do with effective leadership. Honest mistakes can be forgiven, but questionable motivation never. Accepting the position of school leadership calls for purity of purpose and an unswerving dedication to making every decision and recommendation in the best interests of students. Nothing else is acceptable. Your ability to suspend judgment, some call it tolerance for ambiguity, until all the facts are in and sufficiently analyzed, will make your decisions better. Give decisions time to mature before pronouncing them. Consult, 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 and your decisions will be better. Finally, share the credit for the right decisions, take full responsibility for the wrong ones. Circumstances, there may be disappointments, but despite all your efforts, sometimes it doesn't work your way. Winning is not the issue. Acting with integrity and right conscience is the issue. When you lose, lose with grace and style and make the most of the occasion. The way you handle disappointment will be remembered long after the issue is forgotten. In fact, those who prevail may be apologetic. Those who might have won by unfair or unethical means will, in the final analysis, have no satisfaction because you will be back again with your honor intact. It doesn't have to be that. It can be that something else. That was written by Dr. James Caulfield, who died a month ago. But he was here at Seton Hall for 60 years. He was a public school superintendent, but Jesuit educated. You can see the Catholic in that. It wasn't written for a Catholic school. It was written for one of his schools in Union, New Jersey. But if you give to, that will give you an insight into what's their thought process. You can ask, how is that Catholic? So Monsignor Robert Sheeran, who was the president here when I first started, so in 2003, and I went to a symposium at Bergen Catholic. And the last thing I'm going to leave you with is his words. He posed a question to Catholic school principals. How do we meet the challenge of demonstrating to an increasingly skeptical world that Catholic schools matter? Do they make a difference? He went on to say that the data is out there. It is clear and it is startling. Catholic schools do make a difference. Monsignor Sheeran concluded by saying Catholic educators, Catholic school leaders, must have so-called truth in packaging. They must have an integrity that says, this is who we are, this is what we believe, this is how we live, and this is what we teach. In other words, there shouldn't be apologies. I brought that up because at one point in a discussion we had in class, some new principal said, I kind of have to like step on eggs and be careful about what I say with regard to our Catholic school in our parish because many of the children go to public schools and we don't want to offend them. And that's true. You know, we applaud our public school counterparts and what they're doing for education, but I don't think we have to apologize for the Catholic schools. And I think parents out there need to know if there's a choice and this is what we can do. So in the future, as you're looking for a principal, these are just some of the things that come to mind. Is there anything in your experience, before I talk about our program a little bit, anything in your experience that finding a school leader was difficult, or that you hit on the perfect leader, that, you know, you either got lucky or you did all your research and hit on the perfect person?
We have the advantage of the diocesan support.
That's true.
They've changed the way we do things in Pittsburgh. We used to interview candidates and then submit the resume to the diocese. Now, when there's an opening, they say, have the candidates submit their resume to the school's office, schools vet them, and then say, here are some candidates that are good. I wasn't crazy about that last time because we're sitting there waiting with having announced our principal's retirement, and we're sitting there twiddling our thumbs until the diocese says, oh, okay, here are some candidates you can interview. But actually, I was very blessed, and I've told people, my last principal and I had a terrible disagreement. She wanted to retire, and I didn't want her to. She won that one, and I couldn't begrudge her. She would have been an excellent principal. But thanks be to God, a parish just a little ways over from us made a terrible mistake. The finance council said to the pastor, this principal is too expensive. She's got too much seniority, and we think it's time to move on. And it was just at the right time for us. I've got an excellent, I'm extremely grateful for her. The only thing is, I can't stop in and talk to her for a minute. It's never a minute. She's the kind that if you ask her what time it is, she'll tell you how the clock is moving. But I don't mind that because it's worth it. She is, I've sat in, even before, she just finished her first year. Even before the school year started, there was a family that wanted to bring a child back who had caused so much trouble that we knew we would lose the rest of the 7th graders if we did. I sat in with her in meeting with that family, and was just amazed at how well she handled that situation. Even saying to the family, look, I'll help you to find another parish school, but bringing him back here will not be good for him. And it was with a Catholic concern for the family and for the child, even as she was saying, he can't come back here. And there have been a number of other situations that I've supported her as she's dealt with people, and I've said, I don't know what Father Bud was thinking when he accepted the Finance Council's recommendation, but the diocese has been a help for us in surfacing and in vetting.
And more dioceses are doing that. It's going more and more to a centralized model across the country. Many dioceses are becoming, kind of going to that where they're doing the vetting, as opposed to years ago it was the parish or team. And anything else?
You talked about accessibility. I just wanted to mention that I had a conversation with the new superintendent of schools for the Archdiocese of Denver a couple of weeks ago. Really fine man. And he told me that come September, they're opening a new grammar school, which is completely classical curriculum. And the following academic year, their first new high school in about 25 years. And in 2019, a completely new model of financing the schools. The tuition will be geared to the income of the parents, so that some children's tuition will be as low as $1,000. And If parents are millionaires, it's gradated according to the income. So some very, very interesting things, and where you have tremendous growth of Catholic education. Of course, again, it's the issue from the top. They've been blessed with 3 ordinaries in a row with strong commitment to Catholic education. Cardinal Stafford, Archbishop Chaput, and now Archbishop Aquila. But just to let you know that there are places that are experiencing great growth, but also addressing that financial issue.
So in terms of the program here, so that you can get the lunch, I'm going to give you these on your way out. But so this is our 20th year in seed. And with an in-seed cohort, it can range anywhere. We're lucky it's as high as a dozen. It can be as low as 8. But they go through courses together for less than 2 years. And the courses are everything from technology to law to finance, so that a principal really has a grounding and a foundation. Curriculum courses, supervision courses, organizational courses, an internship, a 600-hour internship. And in the courses, one of our claims to fame that Father Peter mentioned, in terms of Catholicity, many of them are co-taught by a Catholic school practitioner and a public school practitioner. Because the goal is, when they get their degree from here, the degree says Educational Leadership Management Policy, Seton Hall University, which means that, I have a public school superintendent's license, I have a public school principal's license because of this program. There's a focus on Catholic school leadership. So if due to, and I say this to you, you never know what's going to happen to your family, whether you have financial need. If they had to make a change, one of the goals of this program is to prepare them for that overarching educational leadership, that foundation, but in every class, other than statistics, maybe technology. Well, technology is a little bit of it. There's an integration of our Catholic values. And next week, I'm here with a fellow cohort member of mine from the doctoral program. She's flying in from San Francisco, and we're going to co-teach leadership dynamics, supervisory analysis. And we just go back and forth, and they get everything, they get absolutely everything they need. And one of the things that I think has been said about the program is when you read, of course, on a weekend, it's one weekend a month, Saturday and Sunday, you can apply that to your practice during that coming month. In January, we're starting an online cohort nationwide. Now, it's out in St. Louis I was working on, and I'm working with a woman from Alabama. In my emails to you, if you're not from this area, I'll probably ask, and I'll send you some electronic information on that. But we're looking to start an online cohort for this, where we will thread in the Catholic school component into the online program that is already in existence. And the other thing we'll do is we will customize it, where I would come out, or a colleague of mine would come out, we do an orientation and we teach the Catholic course at the beginning of one year. We come back the second year, do an orientation for the internship, and teach the second Catholic course during that week. So I'll leave you with this. We just started an online media blitz, where you'll see it pop-ups on, it's new, it's great, pop-ups on Facebook, on Google, where you look at Catholic school leadership, they'll bring those back. I ask for your prayers. We're struggling a bit with this incoming cohort. We're at 6. I need a couple more by September, and I always pray to Father Kevin, please, Father Kevin, and he usually helps me out. But if you know of anybody that's looking for here, we have eliminated Friday nights to make it more user-friendly. We're looking for, if you know anybody who wants to be on campus. Otherwise, if you know of anybody who wants online, all of my contact information is here. And I'd be happy to talk to anybody, help anybody. And my faculty used to say I could sell snow to the Eskimos. So once I get somebody on the phone or get to meet them, we're pretty good. It's that meeting of people. If you just talk about it, you just see it, it doesn't work as well. So thank you for today.
What's the tuition?
Tuition is half of what the public school paid for the traditional program. It's $22,950. It's a fee-based program. That's for the entire degree. It's a double track. If you have a master's, it's an EDS track. And the only difference in coursework is you'll take statistics as opposed to directed research, and you'll be 18 credits and a dissertation short of your doctorate. That's another selling point that we have. So if you have a master's in theology, you have an MBA, you can come into this on an EDS track. So the tuition is $22,950. That includes, it includes parking, it includes food, it includes fees, it includes books. So it's all inclusive. And it finishes in 22 months. So I'm gonna join you for lunch. I'll be happy to talk to anybody about it. But I know I kept you a little bit beyond.
Well, we got started late, so you're on time. We were late.
But thank you. Thank you very much for your attention.
Okay, well, we're going to lunch. Does anybody owe me a feedback sheet? Does anyone not hand one in?